We're about to dig into a story that is just fascinating. It all starts with a simple request for a drink of water, but it ends with a truly revolutionary idea about what worship even is. So let's just start with the big question this story forces us to ask. What if the place we worship doesn't really matter? What if our long-held beliefs about holy ground and sacred locations are missing the point entirely? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back to this source, right? We're diving into an ancient text that documented this one specific conversation, a conversation at a well in Samaria that would completely redefine one of the most basic religious practices. Okay, so let's set the scene here because this meeting was anything but ordinary. In fact, by all the social rules of the day, it absolutely should never have happened, period. I mean, just think about it. This encounter between Jesus, a Jewish teacher, and this unnamed Samaritan woman, it shattered at least 3 huge social no-nos. First, a man just did not speak to a woman he didn't know in public. Second, Jews and Samaritans, they were, let's just say, bitter enemies who went out of their way to avoid each other. And third, a respected religious figure talking to someone considered a social outcast? Yeah, that just wasn't done. So even with all these rules being broken, the conversation itself starts out pretty normal. It's about drawing water from a well, but it very, very quickly pivots to something much deeper, way more personal. And then Jesus makes this stunning claim. He's basically saying, look, the water from this physical well, it'll fix your thirst for a little while, but the living water I'm offering, that quenches a kind of thirst deep in your soul, and it quenches it forever. And right here, this is the moment everything shifts. With this one simple request, Jesus isn't making small talk. He's cutting directly to the heart of her hidden life, to a place of pain and shame she had probably kept locked away for years. And it all comes down to a single number, 5. He reveals he knows her entire story, that she's had 5 husbands, and the man she's with now isn't her husband. Can you imagine that? It's just a moment of complete, shocking exposure. But here is the crucial point. This wasn't about shaming her. For what was probably the first time in her life, someone saw all of it, the reputation, the choices, the whole messy truth, and didn't condemn her. He just saw her. So when you're faced with that kind of uncomfortable truth, what do? Well, you do what a lot of us would do. You change the subject. And she pivots hard to a big, abstract religious debate. And the fight she brings up is this massive, centuries-old argument between the Jews and the Samaritans. It was all about the one true place to worship God. Her ancestors said it was Mount Gerizim. The Jews insisted it was the temple in Jerusalem. This was a really big deal. And Jesus' response is, well, it's a total game changer. He doesn't pick a side. He doesn't say, you're right or they're right. Instead, he just completely reframes the whole argument, basically saying the question of where is about to become irrelevant. He declares that a whole new era of worship is starting, a time when it's no longer tied to a physical spot. Not this mountain, not that city, but something else entirely. So what does that even mean, to worship in spirit and in truth? It means worship moves from being an external ritual you perform in a certain place to an internal reality. It's about a genuine, authentic connection with God, guided by His Spirit and based on the truth of who He really is. Now, after hearing an answer like that, the woman starts putting the pieces together. She's thinking, who is this person? He doesn't just sound like a teacher. He sounds like the long-awaited Messiah. And her hunch sets up the final incredible revelation of the story. You can actually watch her understanding evolve in real time. First, he's just some Jewish guy breaking the rules. Then, after he reveals her past, she's like, okay, this man's a prophet. And finally, after he redefines worship itself, she gets it. This must be the Messiah. And being transformed by this, she does something so symbolic. She leaves her water jar, the very reason she came to the well, a symbol of her daily burdens and her past shame. She just leaves it there. And she runs back to her town to tell everybody what just happened. And so this ancient story leaves us with a really modern question to think about. She left her water jar behind. What about us? What are the old burdens, the long-held beliefs, or even the arguments about the right way to do things that we might need to set aside to experience a more authentic truth for ourselves?